Hello and welcome to Explain. My name is Trifler. This is part 1 of 2 videos that will cover ship design tips for Rule the Waves 3. In this first one I'm going to present some edits to the pre-created legacy designs, but these are edits that can also be used later on with your own designs. Part 2 will cover a few things that are useful to know in general. I'll have chapters and timestamps in the description. I meant this video to go out a couple of weeks ago, but unfortunately health and computer issues got in the way. I lost all my recording settings and I've had to redo this quite a few times now. Hopefully this is going to be the one. I also want to mention this is not a tutorial, so I'm not going to go over all the basics of the ship designer. Although the tips I'm going to cover here do deal primarily with 1890. I don't claim anything here is mind-blowing. These are mostly things I noticed were either being missed by a lot of players or not mentioned in YouTube tutorials or just my own advice. Before I get started, I did go into the Preferences menu and the Sound and Video tab, and then this background interface color, and I did a custom color here to make it ever so slightly gray, to try to make it so it's not quite so glaring. You can see here on the title bar it used to be bright white, so it's not much difference, but if you change these colors a lot, it does let you use pretty much any color you want, but unfortunately most of them make the text almost impossible to read. You really have to experiment with it. But I wanted to just show that so that you can mess with it if you weren't familiar with that was an option. I'll also mention that even some of the colors that you pick for here might not be visible in combat. So that's why I chose to stick with a near default color. Also, the game doesn't have UI scaling, so I did change my desktops to 1080p to make the text a little easier to read. So the ships you start out with here are, in 1890, were here before you took over. And so they use technology from when they were designed, and that means they did not necessarily use all the best technology available in 1890, especially the guns. The first thing I'm going to go over here is the Legacy 6,800-ton armored cruiser. I do have Italy open here, but most of the nations that have 8-inch guns have a good chance of starting with this design. It's a decent design with no major flaws, probably one of the best pre-made Legacy designs. I've seen more than one player decide to just build more of these, and so I wanted to point out a major flaw and how cheap it is to remedy it. So I'll open it for refit, or rebuild, whatever. First off, this weight remaining here is bugged, so just ignore that. They fixed the weight on a lot of these pre-made designs in the last patch, but they did miss this one. This design comes with -2 quality 8-inch guns and dual turrets fore and aft. It has 6-inch secondaries, 4 inches of belt armor, and normal belt coverage, which is good because a lot of these come with narrow belt coverage. So the only real main problem I have with building more of these is that it is this -2 quality 8-inch guns, because all of the nations that start with 8-inch guns also start with -1 quality 8-inch guns. So this is already out of date, and this is particularly bad because in Rule the Waves 3, guns worse than -1 quality cannot be upgraded. And the quality affects the gun's accuracy, penetration, and range. So you really don't want to be building more of these with the -2 quality guns. Instead, you can create an updated design and build that. So we'll go over here and go to Open Design. So this is now considered a design in planning rather than one that exists. And but we get to use knowledge of the other design. So right now it's only going to cost 10% of the normal design fee. And of course, the first thing we want to do is change this to -1 quality 8-inch guns. We can do that either going down and up or up and down, just to change it and change it back. Now, of course, you could create a new design from scratch, but in this case, I think it makes a lot of sense to just update this design. There will be more value in creating a design from scratch a while later after your first generation of ships. And by updating this design, you only have to pay 10%, and it only takes 1 month instead of 3. And then since I've updated this design before, I know I can put in 1 inch of belt extended armor. This isn't going to do much against AP rounds or armor piercing, but it reduces the damage from HE, and it can block 3-inch and lower entirely. Now, Italy and Austria-Hungary, possibly others, start with quality 1 3-inch guns, so I'm going to update those as well. I also want to add some more ammo, and I'm going to drop the forward and aft torpedoes. So now we have a good weight remaining. Check it. Oh, we need a name. Okay. I recommend using a name that reminds you that this is a revision and not an all-new design. One option is to just add a 2 at the end. But as an example, I had another game where this design was called the Marco Polo, and so I named the revision the Matteo Polo after his uncle. And then we'll just check it. Okay, save. And we can see this only costs 219 credits now and will only take 1 month. Do be sure to wait that month. Sadly, I did accidentally immediately build the old design one time and had to reload. So don't make that mistake. Now, can we do anything about the existing ships? Well, unfortunately, since it's bugged with the weight, I don't really want to use that as an example, but I can show you a refit of the 6,300 ton design. Here it's also -2 quality 8-inch guns, but they have single front and aft. We know we're not allowed to upgrade these, but we can change them, the whole turret. We can't upgrade the barrels, but we can change the whole turret and the gun to a 7-inch. That is more expensive, but there's only 2 of them, so it doesn't cost that much. And although these 7-inch have less penetration than the 8-inch, the -1 quality improves their accuracy. And if you did keep these ships around long enough, you would be able to refit them cheaply later on again to quality 0 7-inch guns. Because once we're past that -2 into -1, they are able to be, you can replace the barrels after that. I'm going to add some more ammo. And I guess add some more 3-inch guns. And then I'll just add that for these, you probably won't be keeping them around long enough to get to 0 quality 7-inch guns, but later on, say the 1900s, that would be much more common to get the upgraded guns before the ship is due for scrapping or get sunk or whatever. So I'm going to call this one good. Just go ahead and save, and that'll take 8 months. And now you could, this isn't as important as the changing those 8-inch guns to -1, but this is how you can do this. This is an option you can use for the existing ships. take a look at a couple of designs for this 11,000 ton design. I'm going to make use of the 3,000 credits we saved on the armored cruiser with this design. Notice that you and everybody else start with -3 quality guns on these 13-inch. And as far as I'm aware, the 13-inch is the only gun that has a -3 quality in the game. At least it certainly was the only one in Roll the Waves 2. Needless to say, these are extremely inaccurate. The UK, France, and US start the game with -2 quality 13-inch guns, even though their starting ships have -3. You should expect the UK and France to start laying down new battleships with -2 quality 13-inch guns, basically right away. How does this help other nations, such as Italy? Well, in my opinion, building in a foreign shipyard is a strong option here. Historically, most nations had the UK build their ships for them. However, in this game, the UK has the hidden flaws trait, which gives ships they build a much higher chance of flash fires or just exploding when shot. France and the US don't have that problem, but the US can only build ships up to 8,000 tons at the start, so I prefer using France for this. So with France selected, I'll update the 13-inch guns. So now we have -2. I'm also going to increase it to 100 rounds. France doesn't have the quality 1 3-inch guns, but I'm still going to change the tertiaries to 3-inch because I can refit them to quality 1 at a local yard in Italy later on. So playing ahead there. If you don't play as a nation with quality 1 3-inch guns, you might consider using 4-inchers instead, maybe less of them. They have more range and they have some armor penetration. You could, if you really wanted to, send your existing ships of this design over to France or UK and replace, or no, you can't. Never mind. I'm sorry. They're -3. Just forget that. But in general, what I was going to say is that they're really expensive to change the big guns compared to the smaller ones. And this armor scheme is so terrible, I don't think it's worth it. So we're going to, this is why we can't even worry about this percent change, because we have to change the armor to the point that this is irrelevant. Narrow belt here is a huge weakness. I'm going to change that to normal. Now, as Italy, I'm okay with sticking with the low freeboard for this early battleship. If you're going to use low freeboard anywhere, the Mediterranean is the place to do it. The Med has some of the calmest seas in the world, and I'm not sure if there's another location as calm in the game. So for Italy and Austria-Hungary, I'm going to make use of that 450 tons that this saves. France could possibly use it for a southern fleet. And I also want to mention, I would never recommend using low freeboard on a destroyer. I would recommend against it. They're small enough that in rough seas, the waves can wash over the deck, flood the ship, and sink it, even with no damage whatsoever. So for a battleship, judging by my experience with Rule the Waves 2, mainly low freeboard has a penalty to casemates in stormy weather. As I recall, all casemates would receive an accuracy penalty, and some or all of them may be unavailable to fire. Such as if you have just a few of them, you may not be able to fire any of them. If you have a lot, it could be about half of them. And what I imagine it's doing is it's considering that if there are a lot of them, there would be 2 rows, one higher than the other, and the bottom row would have to be closed to keep water from coming in. Okay, so 6 inches of belt armor isn't enough, so I'm going to increase that to 10. And if we go to the gun data, we can see that 8 inches is enough right now to block these guns at any range. So 10 inches should be enough for quite a while, especially since these -2 guns cannot be upgraded. So these ships will have a limited lifespan. I suppose you could convert them to 12-inch in the future, but that would require replacing the entire turret instead of just the barrels. So, as I was saying before, the large guns, it is quite expensive. But with the better armor, it might be worth it. It's up to you. But for anyway, I would not consider them as valuable as if they had -1, for example. I would like to have at least 2 inches of belt extended. That's enough to block smaller calibers, and it will eliminate splinters, according to the rules of the game. 2.5 inches of deck armor is just a waste, so I'm going to lower that to 1.5. It's going to be a good while before shells can penetrate that. The maximum amount of deck armor that these 13-inch guns can penetrate is 0.672. And also hits to the deck are very rare at this point in time. The deck armor becomes more important once gun ranges increase substantially, and then the shells will start to arc and plunge down onto the ship. At the ranges we're operating at with in 1890, the shells are mostly coming in from the side at a flat trajectory. So now I only really care about using these ships in my home territory, so I'm going to set it to short range. And I would even be okay with using cramped accommodations. But I may try to get normal so it can move around a little. Might tweak a couple of things, but let me load my design just to get it there. So we have 10 inches on the conning tower and the turrets now instead of 6. Good. We did manage to get 3 inches of belt extended. That's much better. And then I did drop the aft torpedo. And I think I increased the number of tertiary guns. So that's the, oh, and I increased the displacement by 500 to 11.5. All right, so that's the 13-inch if you wanted to use those. Next, I'm going to go into the 12-inch. Open this again. All right, so if we drop it to 12, it's still -2. And what this does, it allows you to build locally instead of in a foreign yard. The main downside to building in a foreign yard is, of course, if you go to war with them before the ship is done, you just automatically lose your ship. So you will only want to do that when you're at reasonable peace with people and try to stick with it. So what's interesting is these 12-inch guns have a longer range than 13-inch guns when comparing the same quality, in this case -2. And 0.672, and if we go to 13s, again 0.672, the 13s have more penetration but not as much range. As far as I'm aware, this is the only gun where the larger caliber doesn't have more range. Okay, so again, I'm going to put on 3-inch. Go back to Italy. Okay, and then I'm going to add ammo. And again, if you're not playing as a country with quality 1 3-inch guns, for a battleship especially, I would probably go with the 4-inch. Other than that, those changes, I'm going to load 2 different variations. I'll do this one first. Okay, so this one, what I did is I did increase it to 11,900. 11,900 is the highest you can go before this becomes 31 months, I believe. Yeah. So in this case, I was able to go with medium range and normal accommodations. So this is good if you are not playing in the Mediterranean or something like that. Belt extends is 2.5. Had to go with 1 inch of deck armor. That's still enough, but it may not last as long. But again, we're with -2 quality, so they cannot be updated. Yeah, and then torpedoes, only 1 on each side. I did go with 110 rounds for the 12-inch. Okay, and then with the other one, what I did... Okay, this one is 11,000 tons. We're going again with short and normal accommodations. But what this one has are 8-inch secondaries. Taking advantage of the gun layout that this particular ship comes with. And these are very powerful for this point in the game. I think this is probably my favorite of the 3 battleship designs I'm showing here. Because it does still have the tertiaries for destroyers. And, it works very well. And then, of course, if you wanted to do something... well, whatever. Anyway, if you just wanted to have a battleship with lots of 6-inch guns, you probably want to design your own. But these are ones I wanted to show for new players and people who just want to do the first generation pretty simple. I do think the 8-inch guns work very well. And then if you do like 13-inch guns, that doing a 400 yard is a great option. You don't want to be building more -3-inch, 13-inch guns. That's just crazy. Let's go over some light cruisers now, starting with 8-inch guns fore and aft. There are actually several starting legacy designs like this. In this case, I'm going to start with the 5,400 ton design here. First off, we see that this does come with -1 quality 8-inch guns, unlike the armored cruiser we looked at before. So it was designed sometime after that armored cruiser. That's great. Or it would be, if not for this error. The ship is overgunned. Rate of fire and accuracy will be negative affected. Displacement of 5,500 tons is recommended for 8-inch guns. So for being just 100 tons short, this ship gets a 10% lowered rate of fire, and even worse, a 10% accuracy penalty. Because it doesn't think the ship doesn't think it's large enough to provide a stable firing platform. I have to wonder how the design board missed this. Anyway, this is another example of something you don't want to just build more of these, but it does have an easy fix. I should point out that -2 quality 8-inch guns would only require 5,000 tons, but these were built with -1 quality, so that's no excuse. So we're going to change the design. I'm going to increase the tonnage to 5,500 to meet the requirements. And then I'm going to just load my design so I don't mess everything up. Okay. So I was able to... Oh, the weight is off. I do find that for whatever reason, these weights are not always consistent between game loads, even when there hasn't been a patch. Let me see if I can figure something out real quick. Okay, so I had to start over, and this is what I came up with. The weights between the save design and this design did not match. So what I did here is I got 21 speed, increased the belt to 3, added 1 inch of belt extended, 1 inch deck, removed the deck extended, and increased the ammo to 140. And then we should do quality 1, 3 inch guns. And that's... Oh, and then I gave it 2 torpedoes on each side. But again, this would not be... you don't get any savings here because it's too many changes. But it would be a much better design. You could tweak that however you want, really. Just wanted to show that. Okay, and then here's an example of a 7-inch. I don't think there are any legacy light cruisers with 7-inch guns, so I decided to make one. The 7-inch guns require 5,000 tons instead of 5,500. And I mean, it's very similar, so I'm just gonna leave this on the screen and you can take a look if you want. Same 2 torpedoes on each side. I guess the big thing here is I did end up going with the speed engine. These are lighter, but they do have a much higher chance of breaking down. It's just a random occurrence on the strategic map. They don't break down during combat usually. At least I've never seen it. It might be different in World of Waves 3. Changing these does not affect the cost. It just affects the weight and the reliability. Okay. So I think I'm going to call this first video to a close there. I have some stuff for the next video, and I'll see you then. Hopefully you enjoyed, and have a good one. Thank you.